This is Community Forum, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. Since 1898, Gads Hill Center has been serving the city by adapting to the needs of the changing times, though people have always been at the center of their mission. Today, we have Maricela Garcia here to talk about their work with children and teens. She's the organization's CEO and the first Latina at that position. Welcome.
Thank you.
So let's talk about first how you came into the nonprofit world and how you became the CEO of Gads Hill Center.
Well, it's a long trajectory.
Sure.
So we might not have enough time, but just to summarize, I was always very interested in looking at leadership development in communities. And when I came to the United States in the 80s, I noticed that there were so many issues that affected the Latino community. And I was very fascinated by what I could do in order to become part of the solution. And as a new arrival in Chicago, I was very involved in the nonprofit organizations accessing resources. And I felt that what nonprofits that provide are critical for the quality of life of communities. And I became fascinated to know how they run and more about how they are managed. Okay,
so you came here from, in your country of origin, did you work in nonprofits or in that type of
No,
role?
I was a student I was a university student when I came.
Okay.
And it was because of the Civil War that I left Guatemala.
Okay.
And so my background in Guatemala was mostly community organizing for human rights. And so there are some similarities about what I did in Guatemala and what I saw here in terms of working for improving the quality of life of communities that are most of the time disenfranchised.
Right, right. So you came to Chicago directly, or did you come to another part of the country first?
No, I came to Chicago. There was a very large Guatemalan community in Chicago. At that point, it was the largest Guatemalan community in the United States.
Really?
Outside Guatemala. Yes, Chicago was the destination for many Guatemalans because of the how industrial the city was in the 60s and 70s, so it attracted many people, and it was a place of destination for hundreds of Guatemalans.
Wow, and that community remains strong, obviously, right?
Yes, it is very strong. It has very strong roots, a lot of businessmen, and a lot of people who are civically engaged. Many Guatemalans are citizens that are actively involved.
Wow, and eventually you moved here. I guess most people would say, I'm just going to get a job or start a business like you just said. But the spark, what was the moment that you said, I need to get involved in the nonprofit world? It was, I guess, maybe those memories from Guatemala? Or
I think that it was the many obstacles that refugees, the many refugees that came from Central America and found no legal remedy in the United States because of the involvement of the United States in the wars in Central America. It was reflected in the domestic policy. So Central Americans were not successful in obtaining refugee status or any other remedy for their situation. And it was very dangerous to go back to Central America, El Salvador and Guatemala particularly at that time. Right. So I noticed the desperate need of those communities to find solutions, given that they couldn't go back. And so that was the moment when I thought nonprofits were actually the organizations that were very helpful with legal assistance and even housing or just the basic human needs. It was social service organizations, the nonprofit community. And that's when I started, as I said before, noticing the important role that they play. And I became very interested in that community and how I could tap into it and become part of it.
Wow. And eventually that led to Latino Policy Forum and then to Gads Hill Center. Wow. Latino Policy Forum has this huge focus, and now you're with Gads Hill, which has a more focus on neighborhood work, right?
Yes.
Tell me about the neighborhoods that you serve through Gads Hill Center and I guess a bit of the history of the organization.
Let me just, if I can answer, I became director of the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant Rights because of the work that I was doing
Oh, that's
already
right.
with refugees.
That was before Gads Hill, right?
The Latino Policy Forum.
Right, before Latino Policy Forum.
I was executive director of the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant Rights.
We skipped a bit. Sorry about that.
But it was a progression of my work, my organizing work, and trying to find solutions to the many problems that refugees from Central America found here.
Okay.
So that made sense that I work for an organization that addresses immigrant and refugee issues. And then after that, I became executive director of the Latino Policy Forum, which actually I was a founding executive director of the Latino Policy Forum.
Right.
When so my responsibility was create an agenda, raise the funding, establish the infrastructure of the organization, work with strengthening the board. So all those pieces that I founded executive director does. And after that, I went to NCLR, the National Council of La Raza, to create a new component which was more focused on building the capacity of 300 organizations that are members or affiliates of NCLR to develop their capacity to address local issues, not just provide services, but also look at the policies and the advocacy that they need. And after that, I came to Gads Hill Center. And the focus of Gads Hill Center, as you said before, is providing educational and academic enrichment support for children and youth so that they succeed in school.
Okay, now I'm the one that's going to go back a little. Through NCLR, you have members. How many member organizations do you have here in the city?
About 18.
18? Mm-hmm. And it's getting at policy, so it's maybe discussions with at the state level, at the city level, or with policymakers, or?
Yes, NCLR focuses on a national policy agenda,
okay,
right? So what they do with affiliates in the case of Chicago is that all of us are involved at some levels. The ones who work on immigration work with NCLR in strategies to advance immigration reform. The ones who work on education, like Gads Hill, work to move forward the agenda of education at the national level in coordination with NCLR. But local issues, many of us work with the Latino Policy Forum because those are more state or city focused issues. So that's a distinction. NCLR really focuses only on the national, but needs the legs at the state level in order to influence the congressional delegations at the state level to impact the national debate.
Okay, so now I guess in your own professional and I guess personal decisions to some extent, you work with these very large organizations and then you come to, to something that's really focused on neighborhood issues. I guess I see the interconnection, but why?
That's a very good question. When I was contacted to see if I was interested in being one of the people who they were interviewing, the board of directors of Gads Hill, it took me a while to figure out. I've been very successful in the policy and advocacy. My trajectory shows how that I have made an impact in those organizations, but a community-based organization focused on social services, it's different.
Right.
And I think that where I made the decision was that still the vision is to impact lives positively, to provide a voice for communities to express their desires, their dreams. And the only difference is that Gads Hill provides the day-to-day services for those families to be able to aspire to a better life. Whereas all the policy work looks at the macro level systems that need to be in place to support that change, that individual change. But they are very interconnected because that change that direct service organizations provide is not sustainable unless the policies are in place to support the changes that the day-to-day service organizations create. So there is a strong connection, and I think that in my case, because I do focus on the macro level a lot, that's my way of thinking, that I can see where the organization is going, what policies are coming down the pike that could impact the organization, and prepare the organization for those changes. So I think that what some of the skills that I bring are very instrumental in the position that I have to prepare the organization for changes that are inevitable, or sometimes changes that seem inevitable, but if you organize the community, your board and the families and those stakeholders that care about what Gads Hill does, we could be able to change it.
Okay. Now, you're the first Latina in charge of this organization, right?
I am, yes. It is very exciting. It was such a privilege because the organization has had, before me, 5 CEOs or executive directors in the 115 years of existence. So that attests to the stability of the organization.
Definitely.
It's a very, very stable organization with a strong board that does its job very well. A community that works very hard also to maintain the quality of programs. And since after World War II, it became predominantly Latino, mostly Mexican, because the headquarters are based in Pilsen, or the settlement house was built in Pilsen. And so, of course, at the beginning, in the late 1800s, there were Germans and Irish immigrants, and then there were mostly Eastern Europeans.
Czechs, right?
Exactly. Bohemians and Italians, a lot of Italians too. And until World War II.
You're right.
Yes, right. Even the name Pilsen,
Right.
comes from that piece of history. And then after World War II, the community again transformed and became mostly Mexican. So that's why the heads of the organization reflected that community. However, it took this long for the organization because of how long every CEO has stayed. So naturally then, when the last person retired, then the board thought that it was a good idea to hire somebody that reflected the community that we serve.
Wow, okay. And now as a Latina and with this large experience of serving and advocating and to some extent, I guess, researching about the community, what vision do you bring going toward the future? We'll get to the programs in a bit, but I want to hear more about that vision you have for Gads Hill and the neighborhoods you serve. Tell me about those. What vision you have for the neighborhoods that you serve as well?
Well, I think that Gads Hill challenge and also the vision is that we continue being a platform for success for the community, low-income communities in the Southwest, meaning that we're no longer Pilsen-based.
It's not just Pilsen.
No, because the community, unfortunately, has been moving out of Pilsen. As we all know, Pilsen has gone through a gentrification process, and because of the economy in 2009, because of the banks not lending as easy as it was before, that process kind of slowed down. But the moment that banks start lending, probably is going to go back to how it was gentrifying. And so what we saw was that many of the families that we serve in the neighborhood changed their zip codes. And so that made us realize that we had to be prepared. And so we opened a place in Brighton Park, and that's where we have waiting lists, and we have a lot of people because there aren't that many services in that area where the community is going. So Gage Park, Archer Heights, all the Southwest, New City needs a lot more resources. And so we decided to go there. So my vision is that we are going to be a significant player in the next 5 years to expand that footprint in the Southwest, providing early childhood education and youth programs to the families that have moved out of the traditional Latino neighborhoods.
Okay. the number of Latinos in the city is also increased, I guess, in comparison to other groups. So I guess you're just adapting to that. Despite the movement from traditionally Latino neighborhoods, you're just adapting to that movement yourself as an organization. Yes. Now, you work. One of the focuses you wanted today is to talk about the work with children and adults. What do you offer children of these areas you serve? You mentioned early childhood education, but let's start with children first before. Sure. Beyond the, I guess, age of 5. Yeah,
we provide services 0 to 3.
0 to 3.
We start working with families actually when the mothers are pregnant to make sure that they know what to expect, how to be prepared to create learning environments.
Okay.
Because the child, when children are born, those first 5 years are critical for the brain wiring and the expansion. It's faster than ever in the developmental stages of human beings. So that is a critical period for our families and for us to provide services. So 0 to 3, we provide services in home-based.
Okay, I did want to focus beyond that, but let's stay with that. Tell me about those types of services you provide in home for these families.
We work to support parents to see themselves as the first teachers, the child's first teacher. And so we provide the books, the educational toys, coach the parents so that build the confidence that they can do that. Make sure that the parents read early on to the child, even when apparently the child is not able to comprehend, but they do.
Right.
So, and also is creating the habit. And after that, we offer services home-based, center-based. So that's when the children enroll in our programs in North Lawndale and South Lawndale, where we have a center and we have about 180 children. And so that's the Head Start programs, the Early Head Start, and all the early childhood education programs. And what we do there is always based throughout our programs. Mm-hmm. The cornerstones of our services is our logic model is that we have goals for social emotional development, for academic development, and parent engagement. Those are the 3 cornerstones, and all our programs from 0 to 18 have to have a goal for each of those areas.
One of the challenges I see in our community is parental involvement. Not necessarily because parents don't want to become involved, but because they want to put food on the table. Mm-hmm. How do you respond to that challenge? I know a lot of our community, it's working class, so a lot of times it's odd hours or different shifts. It can be very difficult. How does Gads Hill adapt to that and bring parents in?
We develop a contract since the very beginning. When they enroll their children in our programs, we make it clear that their role and their participation is critical to achieve the educational goals that we establish for each child. So then minimally they come to meetings every month. But if there are issues that we notice that the child is behaving in ways that concern us, we bring the parent and are very flexible. We know that parents work very hard, and most of our parents work for very low wages. So some of them have 2 jobs in order to put food on the table, which means that the flexibility is very difficult. So we make sure that we understand, respect, and work around those limitations in order to make sure that they are on top of what is happening with their child. So I think that it is flexibility. It's also language appropriateness. Our staff is bilingual, and so it's very critical for us that part of parent engagement is knowing the language of the parent and knowing cultural norms. It's not enough to know the language. What are the cultural values and norms that either foster or hinder the ability of parents to become involved? So we we train the parents also in child development so that they know what to expect and what is appropriate, even discipline-wise. Not every discipline that they learned before works in this country.
Right.
So we need to make sure that through our programs we also make them aware about what is accepted, what is effective discipline, and what is something that we need to let go.
Right. So beyond the engagement, it's also, in some sense, parental workshopping. You're helping parents become better parents, right?
Yes, that's our goal, to assist them with information,
Right.
training, and the support, because sometimes they do. What we notice is also that they need to create community. A lot of parents,
Right.
because they work so many hours, they are isolated, and they don't have their extended family here, many of them.
Right.
So we become part of that extended family. We link them with other parents. We have socializations in which we bring parents of young children just to socialize and to learn from each other, to share experiences, so that we break the isolation that in many instances they experience.
That is so key, especially in our society where people are rushing around just to make a living. Now that when children get beyond the age of 5, what programs then do you offer them? You keep the parents involved, obviously, but what else do you bring in children for?
We have after-school programs, and we work with some schools directly, like Orozco High School. We have a mentoring program there.
Okay.
And in that program, we mostly focus on the social emotional, because that's what the school asked us to do. So the partnership is more providing mentors, one-on-one mentor, so that we constantly recruit professionals or people who want to commit to a year, the 10 months of the school year, to mentor a child and be there for the child, developing a meaningful relationship. And out of that, we have documented through our rigorous program planning and evaluation that our children average increase one full grade point in academically, and that is incredible. That the power of a mentor is reflected in academic attainment. I think that it's in that program we notice that the benefit is not only for the child, the benefit is also for the mentor. When we interview mentors after they have completed a year, they are really humble about the experience, how much it changed themselves. It wasn't just how much change they created in the child's life and in school progress, but also that they became better people.
So these mentors are professionals from
Yes, from Chicago. Okay. Many of them are, some of them teach at Columbia College, some of them teach at Loyola University, some of them are engineers who have their own business. So it's incredible the multiple background of people who care and come to mentor those kids.
And this is for grade school children or high school children?
That's for middle school.
Middle school.
Because that transition is very hard. Usually, if they don't do well in middle school, that's one factor that can predict that children are going to drop out of school. So we want to make sure that they resolve whatever issue. They have the skills, they have the confidence to transition that stage and go to school, and even aspire to go to different schools, not necessarily the school in the neighborhood, which we have accomplished. But we also have another program that focuses on getting the kids ready to go to college.
It's Teen Connection, right?
Teen Connections, yes. And that, a college preparatory program. That program engages parents very, very strongly. All the programs do, but that one is puts a lot of emphasis in making sure that, especially the last 2 years of high school, the parents understand the options that the children have, that going out of Chicago, out of the state is good.
Right.
But in Latino, the Latino community, families usually stay with the children longer than what in this society is expected. So the anxiety of letting them go, that they're only 18 and they're maybe 2 years in Chicago and then they can go. So we help them figure that out and deal with those anxieties. But very important, we also train them on the FAFSA application, the college process, all those things that are very difficult for every family. But for our families, it's even more because they are first first generation. Their children are first generation to go to college. They
Right.
didn't go to college. Some of them didn't even finish high school, but they aspire that their children will do better than them. And so they are invested in making sure that they go to college. And 100% of our children go to college. That's what is remarkable about our program, that in the 12 years that it has been in existence, 100% of the kids in our program graduate with at least one letter of acceptance to college.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And part of this program is a focus on STEM, right? On STEM.
Yes,
Tell us
science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay, why that focus?
Because we noticed that that is the area where our kids perform the lowest. That we, based on the assessments or the baseline that we establish at the beginning of the year with their first report card, we know that those areas are difficult, and maybe the limitations of the schools themselves, they don't focus strongly on that, but we want to make sure that they have those skills and that they have options to go into those fields, because those are the fields of the future, not the future right now. You know,
Right.
the major demands for jobs are in the STEM field. And we continue bringing temporary workers from other countries that successfully train the kids in those areas, India and other European countries. We need to make a commitment to grow our own, and
Right.
especially from populations that are underrepresented in those fields. And so that's why we are emphasizing and making sure that our kids develop strong skills in those areas and that know about the opportunities to go, the colleges and the places that are out there, that
Right.
are opportunities for them to incur in those fields.
Now, you've been there a year and a half now at the head of this organization. Could you tell me about a family or an individual, an adolescent who's maybe gone on to college, or something that really stands out that you're like, wow, we're headed in the right direction?
Yeah, I could
I'm sure
mention
there are a
a
number of
lot,
them.
but yes, but
one that stands out.
Yeah, I think that one that was very powerful, because I had just joined the organization last year in April, when in May, this young Latino girl came into my office with one of the mentors, one of the staff, to tell me that she didn't know what to do, because she had the dilemma to either go to Brown or Stanford. And I thought,
That's a good dilemma.
What a dilemma, right?
Right.
So I was so excited about it, and I gave her some questions that I thought was pertinent to answer the question, that she should answer the question herself based on some of the questions that I gave to her. But I think that when she left, I asked the staff, what is the likelihood that the family can actually pay for it? Because those universities, even if you have a scholarship, it's very difficult for the family to afford them. And so the staff then told me that what they did is that they not only work with this girl who had a lot of potential to make her a straight A student from Juarez High School.
Okay.
And but after that, they look at, if she's going to aspire to go to Ivy League universities, she needs to have more than straight A's. She has to show diversity in other interests. So they started working with her in applying for projects.
If you could make it quick, we're almost out of time.
And so help her develop projects to go to Costa Rica and to understand environmental policy, volunteer for places, and at the end, applied to the Gates Millennium Scholarship and won it.
Wow.
So she had a full right to, and she chose Brown.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
And the family is the first child to go to college for that family.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. We ran out of time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate the time in the interview. Thank you.
Community Forum is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Community Forum for local issues and concerns every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us. Bye.